Up to this point in the series, we've talked about the technology behind crypto, the growing ecosystem, and the fact that major financial institutions are starting to explore it seriously. But at this stage, many people watching might still be thinking something quite reasonable. Yeah, Yvonne, it's interesting, but does any of this really matter to me? Good question. Because for most people in their 20s, experimenting with new technologies feels quite natural. But when you're that bit older, in your 40s, 50s or 60s, the question around money starts to feel very different. At this stage of life, many people are thinking about things like, will my pension actually stretch far enough? How will rising living costs affect my retirement? What happens if inflation keeps eroding the value of money? Or how do I make sure my family is financially secure in the years ahead? They're the kind of things that quietly sit in the back of people's minds, especially when you look at how the economic landscape has changed. Many people watching this will remember a time when the cost of living felt very different, when buying a home felt really achievable, when wages stretched further, when saving accounts actually paid meaningful interest. But over the last few decades, something significant has happened to money itself. Currencies have gradually lost purchasing power. Inflation has eroded the value of savings, and traditional financial systems are very complex. For example, in the UK, the pound today buys far less than it did one generation ago. And even modest inflation over long periods of time steadily reduces what money can buy. And when inflation rises more quickly, as we've seen in recent years, that effect becomes even more noticeable. Which is why many people in midlife are starting to ask new questions, not necessarily because they want to take huge risks, but because they want to understand what options actually exist. For some of us, crypto represents speculation. For others, it represents technology. But for many thoughtful investors, the real interest lies somewhere else. It lies in the idea that the new financial infrastructure may be developing alongside our traditional, more known systems. An alternative layer of financial tools, digital assets, global networks, and a new way of storing and transferring value. That doesn't mean everyone should rush out and invest, and in fact, the most sensible approach is often the opposite. I would always say slow right down, learn. The more you understand the landscape before you make any decisions, the better. But ignoring a major technological and financial shift entirely can carry risk. The world continues to evolve whether we are paying attention to it or we're not. For many people, the real motivation isn't chasing massive wealth. It's something much more simple. They want security, choice, and freedom. The ability to support family members, to help children or grandchildren, and to enjoy the lifestyle that they've worked so hard to build, and to feel confident about the future rather than uncertain about it. And that's why more and more sensible, thoughtful people are beginning to explore this space. Not because they believe every claim, and not because they want to gamble, because they want to understand the system properly that might be emerging around them. So in the next video, we're going to talk something much more practical. How you actually begin to tell the difference between crypto hype and genuine opportunity. Because once you understand how to separate noise from substance, this whole space becomes so much more easy to navigate.